Hello, this is Adam Robles, and in this video I'm going to go over 5 reasons why people might call you a Marxist. So the first reason is that it's a pejorative. It's a term similar to when the left calls people on the right Nazis or fascists or white supremacists or things like that. These are just kind of terms that they've kind of taken on a whole new meaning. There are definitely real white supremacists in the world. There are very few. There are definitely real Nazis in the world. There are very few. There are really fascists in the world, and there are a few of those as well. Basically, every conservative has been called a fascist or a white supremacist or a Nazi. I've even been called a white supremacist, and I'm not white, and I don't think whites are supreme. So there you go. I mean, it's a pejorative. It's just a shorthand of calling you a liberal or a shorthand of calling you a socialist or something like that. Instead of calling you a socialist, they kind of ratchet it up and want to call you a Marxist because it's kind of the equivalent of calling somebody a Nazi or a fascist. And it's wrong. It's not correct. So hey guys, if you use Marxist in that way, stop using it in that way, because Marxist is a very specific term and means a very specific thing. And so if you're just calling every liberal that you see a Marxist, probably best to stop that. Number 2, guilt by association. Probably there's some people that call you a Marxist because people that are in similar groups or use similar hashtags to you are actually Marxists. Because here's the thing, this is a good example. If you have ever hashtag Black Lives Matter and somebody calls you a Marxist, well, maybe they're doing it because there are actually literal Marxists in the Black Lives Matter movement. And so it's kind of a guilt by association thing. It's kind of similar to, again, I got to go with, all Trump supporters being called Nazis or fascists because there are some Nazis or fascists that support Trump. And so it's kind of like you're guilty by association. So if you're supporting Trump and then these Nazis over here are supporting Trump, then I guess you must be a Nazi. And so, again, that's another reason to be called a Marxist that doesn't make much sense. So if you call everyone who's ever hashtagged Black Lives Matter a Marxist, probably best to stop that. I mean, I know they do it to you, but just because they do it to you doesn't mean it's good to do it to them. So that could be a second reason why you're called a Marxist. A fourth reason you could be called a Marxist is because maybe the politicians you support are actually Marxists, or at least use Marxist strategies. Because Marxism has expanded beyond sort of just the standard kind of old school Marxism. It's kind of expanded to involve a lot of different kinds of class systems and culture wars. And so maybe the politicians you support are actually Marxists or have Marxist tendencies. And so again, just because you support a politician, does that mean that you support everything that they say or do or believe? No, it doesn't. So again, that's probably not fair. If you support Marxist politicians, probably not best to just assume that means you must be a Marxist. The fourth reason I think is probably the most. It's probably not the most common, but it's the most interesting anyway. You might be being called a Marxist because you are buying into sort of the classic class warfare, culture warfare type rhetoric that Marxists use. If you study Marxism and if you know about how it was applied in various places, if you know how it was applied in China, things like that, with Maoism and stuff like that, class warfare is an integral part of it. There's a specific desire to build unrest between the various classes, and it works itself out in different ways. Even today, it's very popular for people to kind of build up class warfare language and rhetoric between the races and ethnicities. If you buy into intersectionality, basically you're buying into a Marxist system to create endless class warfare, because you can always just slice that intersection a little bit more specifically and create these statistical disparities. You can always find a marginalized group as long as you buy into this idea of intersectionality and how the different identities kind of combine to create a protected class and things like that. So if you buy into intersectionality, if you buy into this sort of class ethnic warfare, you're buying into a system that was designed by cultural Marxists to accomplish a specific goal, and that specific goal is to completely change how Western culture works. And so if you believe those things, if you believe that the intersections of identity politics and stuff and all that kind of thing, classic feminism type stuff, classic critical race theory, if you buy into critical race theory, that is a Marxist theory. And so it is possible that you are being called a Marxist because you believe a lot of Marxist type things. So that one is probably fair. If someone calls you a Marxist because you're a critical race theorist, you're a Marxist. And actually, that's the number 5 reason. You might be being called a Marxist because whether you know it or not, you're a Marxist. Anyway, this was meant for a bit of fun, and I hope it was a little bit informative.